What is going on today, guys? Welcome back to Fix It Garage and welcome to the first Tech Tuesday. What is Tech Tuesday? Tech Tuesday is going to be a deeper dive looking at certain individual parts, why you should replace them, what fails on them, and some differences between them. It's going to be looked at different components or tools or whatever I happen to be reviewing at the time. You might get some product reviews, all different kinds of things. It's not going to be working on cars. It's going to be, maybe I'll show you some worn out parts compared to new parts, why you should replace them, things to look out for, stuff like that. Today we're going to start with a pretty basic one. We're going to start with shocks and why you should always make sure to replace them when they're worn out. Alright guys, so right below my feet I have two shocks. They're both worn out, but one's more worn out than the other, so it'll work for this example. So first, let's talk about what a shock does. So, here's a very basic shock. What a shock does is it dampens the vibrations from the spring. If your spring absorbs all your bumps, this dampens it so you don't sit there and bounce up and down, up and down. If you ever see a car that's just bouncing constantly, usually it's got worn out shocks. So, this is the most basic form of a shock. Literally, it's a shock. It's not like it's not a McPherson strut or coilovers or anything like that. This is a basic shock. So when you hit a bump, it pushes the shock in, and normally that dampens it, and it'll slowly allow it to push itself back out to fully extend it. This is an okay shock. See how it compresses? I can compress it, and it will slowly start to lift back up. It means that the seal inside for the cylinder is not worn out yet. So here's an okay shock. Here's a completely blown shock. This thing is fully compressed right now, and as you can see, it is not. I have to physically expand it with my hands. And then if I push it down, it does not come back up. The internal valving seals are all worn out, so the fluid just goes past. It could just slide right in through there with no resistance. When we drove the vehicle that this was on before I replaced it, and you went over a bump, this corner, which happened to be the passenger side front, would just bounce and bounce and bounce until the spring finally released all of the energy it had from compressing over a bump. That's a really worn out shock. Here's your differences between a worn out shock and a better shock. When it comes to replacing shocks, you have many different options. You can go with OEM, aftermarket, you can go with upgraded stuff, like on this car, it's got coilovers on it. But we're not gonna talk about coilovers today. That's gonna be a whole different video I'm gonna do in the future. For shocks, you definitely can get your money's worth on different shocks. You have brands like Bilstein, you've got Coney, you've got OEM, you've got some of the other weird cheapo brands that I can't think of right now. So when it comes to buying shocks, you kind of have a decision to make. You can buy top of the line ones, or you can buy cheap, minimal cost ones. And it all comes down to, some of it comes down to personal preference. The more expensive ones should last a lot longer. They'll feel a lot better all over the road. They're designed a little bit better to absorb the energy from the spring and the bumps, so you don't get that jarring movement either because they're not too stiff. But it comes down to personal preference. You can also sometimes find adjustable shocks where you can adjust the dampening stiffness. Again, that's going to be a totally different video that we're going to do later on down the line. When it comes to shocks, you guys, it comes down to how much money do you want to spend on shocks. So for the basic shocks, all their purpose is to absorb the spring energy and help your car so it doesn't keep bouncing up and down, up and down, up and down. At a basic level, that is what a shock does. So when you start seeing them wear out, i.e. your car starts bouncing a lot, or, I'll bring this one back up, right in this area right here, you'll start to see buildup of what looks like fluid and dust from driving on the road. Well, that's your hydraulic shock fluid leaking out of the upper seal. At that point, you should probably replace them because they're starting to wear out. That's my little Tech Tuesday on shocks. Next week, we're gonna talk about clutches a little bit, worn out clutches and different kinds of clutches. So, thank you guys for watching my first Tech Tuesday. If you have any advice or anything you'd like to see me do on a future Tech Tuesday, please leave it down in the comment section below. If you like what you saw, as always, remember to smash that like button, subscribe down below so you don't miss any future Tech Tuesdays. Check out the playlist I'm making for Tech Tuesdays. Also, make sure you check out the playlist for this build. It's still up, and I still want you guys to check out how we got this car to where it is today and looking as good as it does. Thank you guys for watching, and remember that on any car that you own, you should never stop wrenching.